Hi everyone, how you all doing? It's James here. Welcome to another video. This is going to be a contest entry for Vinyl Dale, and I would urge you to check Dale out if you haven't already. He's one of the British UK contingent of the vinyl community. Really good channel actually Dale has got. He's got a great collection and he's quite entertaining on camera. He does his videos in extreme close-up. And he does all sorts of stuff. He's really into 60s, kind of early 60s pop music, which is quite kind of fascinating because that's an area of music which doesn't get a huge amount of attention. And I don't know how old Dale is, but he seems to have a great passion for it. He's got a great sense of humour as well, and his videos are always a bit kind of like, you know, you never quite know what he's going to say next. He's quite unpredictable. He did at least one video with a balaclava on, pretending to be a kind of terrorist of some kind, which was quite kind of eye-opening. He's also a very generous person. He's been sending out records to people, and really good, excellent channel. Anyway, so he wants us to show our Wilburys records connected to the Travelling Wilburys, or Travelling Wilburys records. So I thought I would jump on this. So I'm going to whiz through what I've got on vinyl by the Travelling Wilburys, and I'm also going to do a list of favourite songs by the various people who were in the band. I'm going to make a kind of compilation album by choosing one song from each of them from their solo catalogue, and then I'm going to top that up with two songs from the two actual Wilburys albums in order to make a kind of playlist. Okay. So this is the first thing I want to show. This is the 7-inch single of Handle with Care, which was the Wilburys inaugural single. This came about because George Harrison had recorded the song just as a complete solo project thing with Jeff Lynne, and his record company, Warner's, heard it and just said, you can't just... So what happened is he recorded the song and they needed to have some help with it. They went to record it in Bob Dylan's garage, I think, and they were hanging out with Tom Petty, and they got Roy Orbison on board. I mean, the story of how the Wilburys came to be formed is a whole other video, you know. But it was only meant to be a one-off, and Warner's heard it and said, you can't just have that as a... I think it might have even have been a B-side. It was just meant to be a B-side. So... his record company came along and said, you can't possibly just do that as a kind of one-off, you're going to have to do an album. So that's at that point the Wilburys went off and disappeared for a couple of weeks probably. I mean, it was quite a fast project, I think, and they sort of banged their heads together and came up with the first Wilburys album. I bought this from Edinburgh in, I think it was the summer of 1990. When did it come out? Might have been 1988. But I was kind of late to the party with the Travelling Wilburys somehow. I'd got into Tom Petty not long before, when I was at university in my first year. There's Tom there in the middle. And I've been into George Harrison from my kind of early childhood days, really, thanks to him being in the Beatles. And I've been a fan of Jeff Lynne and ELO and The Move since my teens as well. So Bob Dylan was the only one that I was kind of a little bit slow to start getting into Bob. It was after I got the Wilburys album, I think, that I properly started to check back through Bob's catalogue, actually, and the Big O as well. I think I discovered Roy Orbison round about the time that I got into the Travelling Wilburys. So you know, it was George and Jeff Lynne who I'd been into for the longest, and then Tom Petty had just before I got into the Wilburys. And I can still remember taking this home and listening to it and going, this is fantastic. It's quite funny because even though it was vastly successful, the Wilburys were never really a cool band to be into. I remember in the sort of early 90s, I was hanging out in Leeds with all my friends, and I had quite a lot of friends, just like myself really, you know, who were into dance music and Britpop and just things that were around at the time, you know, cool music. And I knew nobody who was into the Wilburys, and I had one friend in particular who was really into a lot of the cool stuff that was around at the time. You know, he was into kind of acid jazz music and, you know, things like Kula Shaker and all those bands of the day. And I tried playing him a bit of this album. This is the This is the second Wilburys album, and we were kind of sat in my room one day, and we were just playing records. He played me, I think he played me a Burning Spear thing, and I played him some Sly Stone, and he played me this, and I played him that, and then I tried to play him a couple of tracks from this, and he was very, very put out by it. I can still see his face in my mind's eye. His face went bright red, and he just said something like, "I don't want to be rude," he said, "but I just absolutely draw the line at the Travelling Wilburys," because I think there was a perception that they were old farts, really, which they were. But I think that was that was the idea of it. They weren't trying to fit in, they weren't trying to be trendy, they weren't trying to be cool. They made no effort at all to fit into the landscape of the early 90s. Their music had a sort of old-fashioned, rickety kind of sound. The second album is much more raw than the first album. The first album has got a slight kind of a slight veneer of synthesizer type sounds which do kind of date it, whereas this record is definitely more primitive. It's got the great guitar solo and some playing from Gary Moore on the opening track, "She's My Baby," and it is a more raw. It's not completely raw. It's still quite polished, because both these records ultimately were produced by Jeff Lynne, or at least co-produced by him. So they've got that kind of early 90s Jeff Lynne sound to them. But anyway, yeah, I played it for my friend, and I think he was genuinely put out that I played it for him. He didn't understand why on earth I would want to inflict the Travelling Wilburys on him, and that is kind of stuck in my mind over the years. Just going to show you a few other things I've got from the Wilburys before we get into the playlist of my favourite songs. So I've got this 12-inch. This is Nobody's Child, which was a charity single they recorded it was in aid of the Romanian Angel Appeal. So there's that. I'll just see if these labels are going to be worth looking at. No, that's just White Warner's label. Oh, that's just George Harrison. We don't want that. Right. So this is the 12-inch of Handle with Care. And the B-side is Margarita, which is one of the songs from the first album. That's got quite a nice label. That's got the customised Wilburys label on it. So that's that one. And then I've got a 12-inch of The End of the Line, which is the final song from the first Wilburys record. Got a label on that one. Kind of a customised label. It's Warner's, but there's a kind of guitar case on the ground. So, yeah, what I do like about the Wilburys is that I think it was a time of great friendship. Jeff Lynne and George Harrison had become really good mates. They had this fantasy idea for a band. George and Bob Dylan were already good friends. Tom Petty and George Harrison became really good friends. They used to spend Christmases together and all sorts of things. Jeff Lynne and Tom were good friends. So if you read stories from that period, it's a very kind of heartwarming kind of time. They were all just enjoying being in each other's company, and it was just a great time for all of them. I think it was sort of a personal high for them all, and it was a career high too. I need to get a CD that I've not pulled off the shelf. Hang on a sec. Might be able to get it without even getting up. See if we can do it. Yeah. So this is the other thing I can show. This is the Travelling Wilburys, the two albums that were re-released as a set. Back in, when was this? This was a few years ago now, 2007, and they came with bonus tracks and B-sides. Not sure if it was remastered or anything, but yeah. So I think that's my complete Wilburys collection. So let's now whiz through, and I'll put together a playlist. Like I said, I'm going to go through each of the individual members. I'm going to nominate one song from from their solo catalogue, and then I'll nominate one favourite track each from each of the Wilburys albums, and then we'll call it a day, okay? So we'll start with George Harrison, because he was the Wilbury that I first became aware of back when I was, 6 years old, I think. That's when I first heard Revolver and tapped into the Beatles, and this is his very underrated album, Gone Troppo, which came out in 1982, and I'm going to nominate the song Mystical One. Which is a beautiful song. It's a song full of self-deprecating wisdom. It's got a beautiful sound to it, very kind of sparkly guitars. It's really nice. Apart from the kind of 80s trappings, this album actually has got some quite nice guitar sounds on it. It's quite kind of fresh sounding. So yeah, that is a really beautiful song. It kind of you know, it mixes up all George's kind of spiritual leanings, and it's just a very peaceful sounding song. George definitely specialised in that. I think he actually said that he liked peaceful music. He didn't like music which kind of rocked the boat too much. And, you know, I think quite a lot of his solo career could be quite, you know, it was quite smooth, soft rock. Could get a bit bland on occasion, but that song I don't think is bland at all, really. Right, for Jeff Lynne, I'm going to go with the Final Move album. There he is there. So this came out in, I think it was about 1971 or something. And I've got a real fondness for the final incarnation of the Move. I have talked about it on my channel before. I might link to a video I made about it a while ago. But the song I'd like to highlight on this record, I mean, there were two for this, but I've had to choose. I'm going to go with the song "The Minister." If you haven't heard it, check that out. It is such a cool track. It's sort of a homage to "Paperback Writer" by the Beatles. It's got this very Beatlesy guitar riff to it. It's got a touch of psych to it, but it's a great kind of hard driving R&B kind of number. So I'll go with that one. The other song I love on this album is "The Words of Aaron," which is a very, very mysterious kind of early 1970s sort of swampy blues rock kind of song with a bit of kind of psych organ on it. Very, very cool record. I love the combination of Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood. I thought they were really, really special together. It's a shame that they didn't go on to do more songs together, really. Okay, so for Tom Petty, I'm going to go with this album. So again, I think this is a bit of an underrated Tom Petty album, really. This is Let Me Up, I've Had Enough. This is the one he did just prior to Full Moon Fever. And there's a brilliant song on this record, and it's called "It'll All Work Out." And I read up on it, and Rolling Stone actually identified it as, I think it came in at number 50 of their 50 greatest, or their 50 most loved Tom Petty songs. It was written, I think, round about the time of Tom's divorce, and it's got a very world-weary kind of sound to it. You know, it's him saying that it will all work out, but you can tell he doesn't really mean that. There's kind of this very, very fine line of heartbreak that runs through the song. It's a very soft song. It's got Mike Campbell playing the mandolin on it. And yeah, it's just a very, very moving, touching song. She wore faded jeans and soft black leather. She had eyes so blue they looked like the weather. When she needed me, I wasn't around. That's the way it goes. It'll all work out. It'll all work out eventually. Better off with him than here with me. You know, it's a real kind of like twist the knife kind of heartache, but sort of understated. And that's what Tom Petty could do, really. He was the master of understatement, and he could suggest universes of pain and heartbreak without really ever explicitly saying how he felt. Okay, let's go with Roy next. So this is the classic Roy Orbison album. Now this album came out round about the time of he had a motorbike crash, or was it a car crash? I can never remember. And then also, shortly after this album came out, he lost his wife and 2 sons in a house fire. Absolutely horrific. On this record, I'm going to go with the song Pantomime, which I don't know if it's one of his more better known songs. I don't think it was a single, I could be wrong. But it's classic Roy. It's a very slow song with that kind of da-da-da, da-da-da kind of rhythm which he always used. It's got this really haunting piano refrain, and it builds into this kind of orchestral grandeur kind of song, you know. But the song starts with him addressing a loved one sarcastically and basically saying, you know, thank you for making me the talk of the town. And the idea of the pantomime is that she turned his life into a pantomime. You know, she turned him into a laughing stock, and he sings it with such gravitas and grace. You know, Roy is at his finest, I think, when he sings slow songs. He's much, much better, I think, when they allowed him to do those kind of slow burning ballads. His up-tempo stuff is good fun, but his voice never particularly suited those kind of songs, I don't think. So yeah, excellent song, Pantomime. Check that out. And then finally, for Bob Dylan, I'm going to go with a song from Oh Mercy, and it's a track I've always loved by him, and it's the song Everything Is Broken, which has got a kind of R&B vibe to it. It's got that swampy sound, which the whole album has got. It was produced by Daniel Lanois, this record, and it's got that kind of crickets chirping on the bayou kind of sound to it. But it's got a real great sort of propulsive bass riff to it, and it's just a great example of what I've said before on my channel when talking about Bob Dylan, that, you know, he's kind of viewed as this incredibly poetic and lyrical songwriter, but he was great at doing these reasonably, not throwaways actually, but reasonably sort of light pop songs, pop rock songs that just sound great and the words marry to the rhythm of the song really convincingly. And it's a production number, which I find quite interesting, because Bob is not really known for his big production numbers, but when he wanted to, he would go with these producers like Daniel Lanois, who knew how to give his sound a more sort of contemporary edge, and that's one which I just find really compelling. So, Everything is Broken by Bob Dylan. Right, so that's one song from each Wilbury. So we're going to finish out now. We're going to do five songs from the two Wilburys albums to round it off. So from the first album, I'm going to go with Dirty World, which is a brilliant song which enables all the Wilburys to take it in turns, doing one line each. I think it's meant to be a love song to a car. It's great fun. I've always loved it. I used to have it on a tape in my car, and I just wore the tape out listening to that song. Absolutely brilliant. So that's number one. For number two, I'm going to go with the song that Roy sings on this album, which is Not Alone Anymore, which is just a brilliant windswept ballad. They always said that when they recorded that song in the studio, they just couldn't believe it. When Roy opened his mouth, it was like, I think they were concerned that they were going to break the microphone in the studio, because he didn't. I don't think he told them how loud it was going to be when he sang, and they were all just totally dazzled by this, just this immense operatic voice which came out. So we'll have that one, Not Alone Anymore. That's two. On the second album, let's go with Inside Out, which is a great kind of rocking number with some good joint vocals on it. Then we'll go with the song Where Were You Last Night, which is just another clever pop song. And the song I really love on this album actually is New Blue Moon, which is a very, very melodic, kind of drifty kind of song. It's got some lovely major to minor chord changes, which I think was a speciality of Jeff Lynne. And yeah, there we go. Five solo tracks, 5 Wilbury songs, and if I can be bothered, I'll make a playlist. If it's not there, it's because I just run out of willpower to put it together. But hopefully you can enjoy those songs anyway by just googling them yourself if you should choose to. Anyway, I've rambled on for quite long enough there about the Wilburys, so do check out Dale's channel, Vinyl Dale, and I think his channel is called Vinyl Dale and the Vinyl Grail. Could be mistaken, or is it the Holy Grail? I can't quite remember. Let's have a look now, so just so I can not have to put it up on the screen. Let's have a look. Right, his channel is called Vinyl Dale and the Search for the Holy Grail. Get yourself over there, subscribe to him. I think it's his 100 subscribers competition. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I shall speak to you all soon. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.